Hairston, that's 8.
Walden, is this thing on? Will all the council members please get in position? We're going to be starting. I'd like to really start on time. We got a quorum?
I have 10.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, more we have 10.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 10?
Mm-hmm.
7 o'clock, we're gonna start. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Griffin,
Here.
Bishop, Conwell, Gray, Hairston, Harsh, House, Jones, Casey, Moorer, McCormack, Mooney, Polensik, Santana, Slife, Spencer, Starr. You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. Will everyone please rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, please dispense with the journal.
By Councilmember Slife, that the reading of the minutes of the last meeting be dispensed with the journal approved, seconded by Councilmember Moore.
All right, we'll move to public comment, and first we have my good friend Dantes Taylor from Ward 4 to talk about transportation and recycling. And Mr. Taylor, I will be holding a 3-minute time limit, so please help yourself to the mic, and then we'll follow up from there, okay? All right.
Over here, you're right in front of it.
In front of the mic.
When I tell you time, or please wrap up, Mr. Taylor, please keep that in mind, okay?
Okay.
Please begin.
I would like to know, when are they going to start the recycling again? I don't know. Yeah. And how we're going to, and how they're going to do the recycling when they do start the recycling process again. And I would like to say about transportation is they going up on the fare and stuff like that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. And if we have anybody, can somebody make sure that they help Mr. Taylor out to let him know about the recycling program as well as the transportation fares. Thank you so much, Mr. Taylor. All right, next up we have Marge Mezak, and I want to remind all council members to please acknowledge the speakers, turn your chairs and acknowledge the speakers. Next up we have Marge Mezak, Ward 3, Ohio City, to talk about city land bank disposition policy. Ms. Mezak, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Marge Mysak. I've lived in the city of Cleveland for more than 30 years, and I directed the first community land trust here. In my current work, I provide technical assistance to the Franklin County Land Bank in Columbus, actually, as they develop a county-wide community land trust. So I'm here tonight to talk about what happens to land in our city, specifically land that the city currently owns in its land bank. As council members, you are often asked to weigh in on decisions about land bank parcels, and Mayor Bibb has the intention of creating a vacant land task force to identify opportunities to, quote, market, sell, and develop city-owned vacant lots throughout Cleveland. I'd like to suggest that before creating a more efficient system for selling vacant land parcels, it's critical that the city create an equitable policy for the land bank, which we don't currently have. Such a policy would shine a light on our vision for an equitable future for all residents, especially those who are homeless or unaffordably housed. So what might that take? First, we need to know our history. We could look to Evanston, Illinois' discrimination study that made the case for their reparations program as one good example for a historic look. Closer to home, the impact of foreclosures and abandonment have been well documented by the Vacant and Abandoned Property Action Council, as you all know, I'm sure. Daniel Kerr's book, Derelict Paradise, documents a much longer history in Cleveland of urban development policies that have led to displacement and homelessness. So then what might an equitable land bank policy look like and include? I'd like to suggest 3 good ideas and some places that have put them into practice. First, transition from a focus on highest and best use to establishing criteria that prioritize neighborhoods and residents impacted by long-term disinvestment and displacement. The Albany County Land Bank in New York did exactly that, and they have a good example of a process with those priorities. Second, prioritize land for permanently affordable housing development to address the critical shortage in the city of Cleveland, where it's estimated that 9,300 homeowners and more than 26,000 renters pay more than half their income for housing. The Atlanta Land Bank's policies and procedures established that priority, and they followed it up with an agreement with the Atlanta Land Trust. And then finally, create a path to permanency for green space initiatives in the city of Cleveland, which we don't currently have, whether it's for community gardens or community gathering spaces. And we could look to green space land trusts like those in Baltimore or Chicago for good examples of those. So I'd like to thank you for your time and attention to this, and I'd be happy to follow up with any of you on any of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mysak. I'm going to ask if you could, because you bring up some very good ideas, if you could share some of your concepts with, we do have a chair of DPS, and I think it would be great if you gave him some of your ideas, because we are looking at those policies, okay? Thank you so much, ma'am. All right, next up we'll have Diana Hildebrand, Ward 2, Complete and Green Streets, and Ms. Hildebrand represents Bike Cleveland. Ms. Hildebrand.
Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to voice my support for an updated Complete and Green Streets ordinance. My name is Diana Hildebrand, the founder of DVD Cycling and the Education and Outreach Coordinator at Bike Cleveland. I also sit on several boards and committees such as University Circle, Inc., Cleveland Velodrome, Ohio Bicycle Federation, Canal Way Partners, and NAUSA. I've been riding my bike for a little over 4 years, and it is one of my greatest passions. I turned that passion into a career, bringing me into contact with hundreds of fellow bike riders across the state. It is my mission to create fun and safe experiences for children, adults, and seniors of all abilities that I work with. This can be a challenge in Cleveland, where our streets are designed for cars and cars alone. Though I love speaking the gospel of safe cycling, no one ever hears me, Diana DVD Hildebrand, speaking about those scary moments, the moments where I've bailed from a ride due to unsafe roadways and conditions. As a citywide community ride leader, I have ridden over 6,000 miles throughout these streets. And even as a confident cyclist, there have been incidents where I knew that coming home was way more important than continuing on with a bike ride. Let's take, for instance, riding the Opportunity Corridor, a 35-mile-an-hour roadway created to improve the roadway network within a historically underserved, economically depressed area within the city of Cleveland, which is supposed to be safe for our neighborhoods, but I consider it a speed trap. With the ongoing distraction of cell phones, debris on the roadways, poor signage, on top of the trying to get there fast mentality, hence Opportunity Corridor, our city has created a speed death trap for its citizens trying to cross the street to see friends that this roadway has torn through. Even with the multi-use paths designed for safe travel, the fears of car jumping the curb or a car not paying attention when turning left or right, hence 75th Street, Woodland Avenue, Kinsman, East 105th, and Carnegie, running a red light because the driver of a one-ton vehicle thought they could beat a yellow light or just blatantly running a red light. Oh, and let's not forget a few honorable mentions: Broadway Avenue, Miles, East 93rd, Harvard, East 116th, East 55th, Buckeye, Fulton, Lorraine Avenue, just to name a few. You have the power to make our streets safer for people like myself and my 12-year-old son who utilize the bikes for transportation and for fun. I live in a Union Mouse neighborhood, and I've seen many streets get repaved like East 131st Street and Harvard Avenue without bike facilities added. The community wasn't notified as to why these streets were exempt from the Complete and Green Streets legislation passed in 2011. There are dozens of instances just like this across the city, a clear indication that the new ordinance must increase transparency and close unnecessary loopholes. I ask that you introduce, swiftly pass, and fully implement an updated, complete, and Green Streets ordinance that applies to all projects across the whole city, that they are safer for all of us users. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hildebrand. Next up, we have Mr. James Lamb. Mr. Lamb is Ward 3, and he's here to talk about the city budget. Please acknowledge the time, Mr. Lamb, and the clock in front of you. Thank you.
I sure will. I just ask one thing, that you acknowledge one thing. I have a speech slur, so I want my words to get out, and I want folks to hear them, and that's all to it. But I stand here today, and I talk on the budget, and I'm going to talk on the budget until the budget has been dealt with, and has been dealt with in the manner that me and mine in the communities that I live in have something to do with it and something to say about it. I said that the last time I stood here, I said that the president had signed $151 million into Cleveland before Frank Jackson left. But I mistake and made an accident, because that was $511 million. $511 million, and I can't see streets paved. $511 million, and I'm watching a city council meeting right now that's aired, whereas when they weren't aired, this whole place was packed. Every director, every council person was here, because that's the people's money. And that's where I come from today. I don't understand it, but we're going to get around to it. Because when I say I went to work part-time and paid 1/3 of my own money to pay me for the city of Cleveland, I know one thing. I'm just as good as anybody that sits here. So I say this today. I said it maybe 4 or 5 years ago. City council needs someone to sit alongside them from the communities, because the dollars that you all spend and the dollars you all push back and forth at each other, them are our dollars. Them are our dollars. And our dollars they're not being spent correctly. And I just need to know that within the next 4 years, and I would love to see that cabinet make it. I would love to see the council make it. But let's do it, and let's do it correctly. I paid for it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Next up, we have Andre W.R. Daly from Collinwood to talk about the closure of Dave's Supermarket. Mr. Daly, please acknowledge your time, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you to the councilman for letting me speak tonight. 3 minutes. My name is Andre Daly, and I grew up in Collinwood. My family and I have been patrons of Dave's Supermarket at 15900 Lakeshore Boulevard in North Shore, Collinwood, all my life. We have all witnessed the decline of the building over the years. When it rained in Collinwood in April, it also rained in the building. Year after year in the spring, we see the emergence of containers in the market to catch water flowing from a leaking roof. The Saltzman family, who have been proprietors of Dave's Supermarket, are being charged roughly $20,000 a month to lease that space on Lakeshore Boulevard. This total is close to $250,000 a year. Dave's announced last week it had intentions to shutter its Lakeshore Boulevard location on April 30th. They did not intend to renew their lease, and they would not stay on for years continuing. They're redirecting shoppers to their Euclid location, located on Shore Center Drive. The location is 8 minutes from the Lakeshore location, which equals 3.1 miles. But we all live different directions in Collinwood. See, there's South Collinwood, Nottingham, all these different communities. It's not exactly 8 minutes from everybody. I'm here tonight to express my community's justified concern at this sad turn of events. We believe in the residents of Ward 8 on the city's east side, and we believe they have a right to access produce and healthy food options in clean, attractive environments. Whether we walk, bike, drive, or transit, we should all have access to healthy food options. This is vital to Cleveland's growth and its diverse population. I would not desire to see seniors, veterans, or disabled constituents of Ward 8 continue to lose access. We owe them so much more. A supermarket, which is centrally located on the boulevard, is essential to Collinwood's development and growth. We must all commit ourselves to attracting and nurturing food infrastructure across Collinwood's historically underserved communities. I'm sorry, that should have been the city's, Cleveland's underserved communities. Thank you all for engaging with me here tonight. I yield back the remainder of my time to the chairman and honorable councilman from Ward 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. And it's good to finally see you in person, Ms. Daly, Mr. Daly. I don't usually respond on Twitter, but good to see you in person. All right. Next up, we have Sabrina Otis, and Ms. Otis is from the Coudale neighborhood, and she's here to talk about housing and out-of-town landlords. And yes, we did read the long statement you made, so you have the floor, Ms. Otis.
Okay, I'll be really brief. I need this council to do something about our out-of-town landlords, and not just out-of-state. I'm talking about out-of-county. These landlords are not paying their taxes, but they're collecting a lot of rent. They're not doing repairs, but the City of Building and Housing wants tenants to comply to inspections. I'm not complying. I'm not complying because my landlord doesn't do any repairs. I'm not complying because I shouldn't be in the house. I'm not complying because there's a court order that says I'm not supposed to be in the property. And I'm tired. I'm tired of writing long books to councilmen and commissioners and state officials, asking them to do their job. Everybody is voted in. And like everybody's voted in, everybody's voted out. We're tired. The rent in Greater Cleveland is out of control. And when you start looking at who's raising the rent, they don't reside in Cleveland. And we have this problem with your builders. You guys keep giving all these builders all these perks. And when they build up those properties, they're hitting back with these big rental rates that are making it unlivable for the rest of the community to survive. This community was built on poor folks. It wasn't built on the rich. The rich left us and went to the suburbs. And now they decide they want to come back and they want to benefit. I went to a meeting regarding Battery Park, and I'll never forget what the guy said. He says, why can't we continue to get tax abatement after 10 years? I mean, we invested. Well, hello, we pay all our bills. We're invested in the city as well. At the end of the day, this council's got to step up and do something, because we already know county council can't seem to do their job. We already know housing and building is kind of confused. We need you guys to step up and say enough's enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Otis. Thank you, Ms. Otis. Next, we have Lowe. Lowe is from Ward 7, and Lowe will be talking about public transit fare evasion decriminalization, and Lowe is with Clevelanders for Public Transit. Lowe,
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for Mr. Griffin's introduction. But what have we heard today? Land, housing. These are the serious issues we face in our community. Cleveland has been the poorest city in the whole nation, just like I'm the shortest person in this whole room. However, one thing we can do to start changing it, think about the magic number, City Ordinance 60511. Yes, we have lots of things against us to make the community standing up. However, this particular ordinance, if you just take 5 minutes, look at it, and you can see that's outdated ordinance. If we can just change this one, it will help people to go around between this community to that community, because they don't have to worry about if they have enough fare. They remember their bus pass to get on a public transit. Come on, let's think about when we were little. Who remembered to bring homework every day to the teachers? You don't. So that means CMSD students, even if they use an ID card as their ID to get on bus, if they change a book bag, they forgot to move the ID, they will be caught, and they can be put on discharge from this particular ordinance for them to carry a criminal records when they are even just kids in school. It's not fair, because we already all pay tax, which will fund public transit, GCRTA. So for people to pay again, it's already far stretched. But before we can get into the utopia free fare, your help will make everybody's living easier, one less opportunity to get in trouble with the law. That means that's one step go towards their education, their job, their health care, their housing, maybe grocery shopping, or just going to church without worrying about this $5 or $2.50, these little dollar amounts which will put them in big trouble. That's one thing we definitely can do. Please help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lowe. And finally, from the Great Ward, Ward 6, Pastor Wanda Hill-Chestnut, to talk about safety guardrail requests and denials. And Pastor Hill is with the St. Luke Church, 7919 Kinsman. Pastor Hill.
Good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I'm standing before you guys because we have an issue. The location of our church is 7919 Kinsman Road. And we have had our fencing hit in the last 3 years 7 times. We have requested guardrails to be placed. About 2 months or so ago, there was a young man killed about 50 feet prior before you get to our fencing area. Our fencing area has become the safety net or the catch-all for all of the out-of-control vehicles that come over the Kinsman Bridge. And my concern is that it is just a matter of time before one of our congregants will be either hurt or killed. We've applied for guardrail safety. We've applied several times. We have contacted the Office of Project Management for the Mayor's office, and we have got a consistent no. And this consistent no will cause a consistent problem. And my issue is, after these problems are introduced, we've talked about them, they've gone around this merry-go-round of nothing, and confusing activity with production is a problem for us now. I think we've been more than patient. I think 3 years is long enough to come up with a viable solution. And if it is not long enough, then the problem is bigger than just us not having a guardrail. And my concern is, who do I talk to now that I've addressed this with City Hall? Who do I reach out to now? And if you guys don't know the answer, it's okay to say, I don't know, and I can try something else. Or you can say, I don't know the answer, and I don't know who to ask for help. Then we can still try something else. But we need to know, what is the problem? Who are your problem solvers? And do you have a go-to person? Who's your equalizer? Who's your Olivia Pope in City Hall that solves problems? Because we have the same problem today that we had 3 years ago. And I don't know if I'm asking the wrong people, if I'm asking the wrong question, or if I'm just in the wrong city, that safety is presented as an amenity. Safety should be automatic. And we are not safe without guardrails in front of my church. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. This wraps up the public comment component. I would ask if, I know that this is not the time for call and response, but I do see somebody from the administration coming to see you, Ms. Chestnut, okay? Thank you. The next thing we have, Clerk Britt, please share the communications.
File number 333, 2022, oath of office for Froilan Roy Fernando, Executive Assistant to the Mayor. From the Ohio Division of Liquor Control, file number 341, 2022, regarding a transfer of ownership application at 1375 Euclid Avenue, Ward 3. File number 342, 2022, transfer of ownership application at 2067 East 14th Street, Ward 3.
Thank you. Are there any condolence resolutions?
Resolutions of condolence by Councilmember Conwell for Francis Maxine Gilmer Knox, by Councilmember Jones for Dr. William Walker, by Councilmember Polensek for Richard L. Eckert, by Councilmember Hairston for Curly Range.
Thank you. Are there any other condolence resolutions? Councilman Charles Slife and then Councilman Mike Polensek.
Please hold out a number for Madeline Kane, former state rep and mayor of Lakewood.
Thank you.
So noted.
Councilman Mike Polensek.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Clerk, could you please add me to Councilman Hairston's condolence resolution for Curly Range? I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
So noted.
If Councilman Hairston doesn't mind, I would like to be added to that as well. She's a longtime friend of mine. Thank you. I would also, Madam Clerk, if you could please add from our Peacemakers Alliance Street Outreach team, Carlos Williams, who has passed away. Carlos Williams.
So noted.
Will all council members please rise for a moment of silence? Thank you. Congratulatory resolutions.
Resolutions of congratulations by Councilmember Griffin for Terry Allen, by Councilmember Griffin for Our Lady of Blessed Sacrament Parish on their 100th anniversary, by Councilmember Griffin for Dr. Anthony Theodore Parker, Esquire. Resolutions of commemoration by Councilmember Gray for Bishop Louis Q. Fitzpatrick.
All right. I'm privileged and honored to have a presentation today, and I'm going to ask if he can join us in the well, and I'm going to ask if any of the council members can hold the door for Director Michael E. Cox, a.k.a. School, a.k.a. Super Cat, the whole thing. Director Cox. If he could join us, and if any of his team would like to join him, I see Commissioner Scott. I know we have Assistant Director Johnson, I believe. If anybody else would like to join him, any council members, please join us over here for Director Cox. Mike Valencia.
Oh, please.
Get up here.
I'm like, come on. Sitting down.
Anybody can come up here and join us, please. The chair.
Michael, thank you. Chairman, how are you?
All right.
Good, sir. How are you?
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Are you sure you're retiring?
So, is this thing on? So, we want to do a presentation today to my good friend, and this guy means a lot to me, but more so he means a lot to this city. I often joke Mike Cox started working in City Hall when I was 1 year old, and he has been a dedicated public servant. A lot of us have learned a tremendous amount of information from Mike Cox. Some of us call him School, some of us call him Super Cat, but Mike is really just a dedicated public servant. And today is his last day in City Hall. And it's very, very moving to all of us, because it's going to be a different day just watching City Hall without this man wandering the halls, leading the charge and just being a great person. So, Mike, on behalf of all of us, we really appreciate you, and thank you for 50 years of service, sir.
Tell them how you feel now.
Thank you very much. Council President, who when he came in here in 2006,
yeah,
they assigned me I had one more assignment, Watts Jr. I called him Junior because he was new and he was rambunctious and he was ready to go. And so they told me, say, just watch him. Just keep out of him. Make sure you know where he's at. But it has been a privilege and an honor to serve this city for this many years. I was 22 years old when I walked in. One pair of blue jeans and one pair of tennis shoes. And I worked my way to become a director in the city. And I did that by providing service and things that needed to be done. I prided myself on getting it done. Sometimes you have to press the push, even those that are outside of your division or your department. And you have to make those relationships so you can get things done. You're not going to make everyone happy. There are going to be a lot of things that you don't do, a lot of things that people say that you didn't get done. But I believe that I've served the city and the citizens of the city, and that what we gave them is what they deserve, and that's the service, and that's what we have to give, and that's what I appreciate. My tenure. Tomorrow, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. It's been a lot. Somebody asked me, how you feel? I feel fine now. In the mornings, when I wake up, it may be a different story because I don't have, I can't go to work. But I think I can learn. I can learn to live a different lifestyle and maybe, give me another 15, 20 good years of just sitting around and making sure I do. But I want to thank not only the people that work with me, the people that were in other departments that work with me, and I've gotten a lot of people that said, thank you, right? Just thank you for helping them to get things done. And again, you can't satisfy everything that people want, but I think if we can do what you can, right? Limited by what you can do, but you try to do everything you can do to make people, my mother, we came out of projects, Outhwaite projects, and we moved up to 93rd and Woodhill Road, and we thought we were rich, right? Because we had never had a house, and it was like 5 or 6 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment in project. Right, and so we thought we were rich, but my father was a servant, public servant. My brothers were public servants. My sister was a public servant. And some people have doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs. We had public servants, and he was. My father taught us how to serve the public. So I said to the Mayor Bibb, and I wish his administration all the best. I think because they've settled in, and I think they're getting where they need to be and get this thing done in service. Because what I've been told and what I've done with the administration so far is they want to make sure that the people of the city of Cleveland get what they deserve, and they deserve the same thing they get in Solon and Rocky River. Regardless of where we're at in this city, they deserve it, right? So I tell my people over here, there's Randy Scott, who is my 40-year-old buddy, but he's my brother, and Mike Palencia, you know what I mean? They said, one of the former council people, Earl Turner, said, you two like cockroaches, you ain't gonna never die, right? And so, I know you like that, Michael. but we served, and I appreciate you. I'm going to cut this short. I want to let you get to your business, but I want to thank all of you, and I want to thank the council. Right? We don't always agree, but we always understand that when we disagree, it's not a personal thing, it's business. We need to get the business done. So I thank you for allowing me to come to this body. I thank you for allowing me to stay. I appreciate Mayor Bibb for allowing me 3 months to transition. And I will be going on Saturday down to Florida the rest of the little while. And then I'll be back when it gets warm. So thank you very much. And I said to Mayor Bibb the other day that I heard someone say, let my service speak for me. And I think that's what we all have to do. So thank you very much. All right, and God bless.
Mike. Thank you. I'll be very brief. I just also want to recognize Director Cox, and I've been on council for 6 years, and you're going to be very hard pressed to find someone who exemplifies the term public service more than Director Cox. A man that, when we were throwing tomatoes at you in the council table, kept a straight face and responded to us, and every single time you sent him an email or you called him, he responded to you almost immediately with, "Councilman will take care of it." Because you knew, Director, that concern was coming from a resident who had an issue or was struggling. So a true dedicated public servant, 50 years of service to the city of Cleveland, sir. That is a tremendous legacy for this city. And just want to thank you on behalf of all the residents of Ward 3 that you've helped over the years. We want to thank you for your selfless public service. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
As some people call him old school, some people call him other things. We had some good names for him as well in council over these years. My first claim to fame was when I came into council. Mike was a sidewalk inspector. So when he talks about climbing up the ladder, working hard, being committed to our city, I'm always appreciative of that. It is about public service at the end of the day, and the director exemplified that, his care and his concern for the people of Cleveland. He is old school. It is about service. It is about taking care of our residents. And I want to say, my friend, I wish you well, Godspeed. I'm the only one left in council who served with you all these years. I've had to put up with you all these years, okay? All these years we've worked together. So again, my friend, God bless you. Okay?
Two more. Anybody else? Casey Starr? Casey?
Thank you, Mr. President. When I was first on council, I remember one specific day where I probably wasn't as nice as I could have been to Director Cox at the table. And later on that evening, I almost felt like I had to eat a little bit of crow because I had to call and ask for something for the director to do. And throughout the course of the conversation, I said to him, I said, Director, why are you being so nice to me when I was just a little difficult at the table? And he said to me, Councilman, don't ever take it personal, right? Never take it personal at the table, that it's just business. And that's the way that I continue to look at things throughout City Hall today, is that we don't take it personal. We're here to do what's best for the residents of the city of Cleveland. And you, my friend, have been exemplary for the last 50 years. I mean, from day 1 to day 50, and not too many people can say they get to retire on the day that they started, on the date that they started. But 50 years of public service, we should look at naming something after you somewhere. All right, thank you very much.
So I just want to once again thank all of his team. I know that he has a big team that's back there as well. I want to ask all of them to stand up if they could as well. I know Assistant Director Johnson is back there and a couple of his team, Commissioner, and she's going to be the acting. But you're only as good as the people around you, and this team all work closely with him too, so I want to acknowledge you guys. Mike, we're going to miss you, man. Enjoy yourself, baby. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Here you go. All right. My man. All right. Just say something for me. I love you.
I'll meet you over there. We're going to do something.
And make sure you get that sleeve, too. Sleeve? All right, Madam Clerk, first reading emergency ordinances referred for administrative review and committee review.
By Councilmember Griffin by departmental request to amend Section 171.40 of the codified ordinances relating to the use of city credit cards. Ordinance 326-2022 by Councilmembers McCormack, Bishop, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request, authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to lease certain property located under Arch Number 3 of the Superior Viaduct to Apartment 92, the Apollo LLC, for the purpose of creating a curated green space amenity for the use of residents of its apartment complex for a term of 5 years with one 5-year option to renew, exercisable by the Director of Capital Projects.
First reading emergency resolutions adopted.
Resolution 327-2022 by Councilmember McCormack, objecting to a new C1 and D6 liquor permit at 1936 West 25th Street. Resolution 328-2022 by Councilmember House, objecting to a new C2 liquor permit at 8035 Superior Avenue. Resolution 329-2022 by Councilmember Polensek, objecting to the transfer of location of a C2, C2X liquor permit to 772 East 185th Street. Resolution 330-2022 by Councilmember House, objecting to the transfer of a liquor license of a D2, D2X, D3, D3A liquor permit to 6400-02 St. Clair Avenue, first floor and basement. Resolution 331-2022 by Councilmember Casey, objecting to the transfer of ownership of a D5, D6 liquor permit to 12524 Lorraine Avenue. Resolution 332-2022 by Councilmember House, withdrawing objection to a new D1 liquor permit at 2162 Rockwell Avenue and repealing Resolution 992-2020, objecting to said permit.
Read the motion to suspend the rules.
By Councilmember Slife, that the rules be suspended and the legislation just read be placed on final passage, seconded by Councilmember Moore.
Call the roll.
Griffin, Bishop, Conwell, Gray, Hairston, Harsh, House, Jones, Casey, Moore, McCormack, Mooney, Polensek, Santana, Slife, Spencer, Starr. 15 yeas.
Call the roll on adoption.
Griffin, Bishop, Conwell, Gray, Hairston, Harsh, House, Jones, Casey, Moore, McCormack, Mooney, Polensek, Santana, Slife, Spencer, Starr. 15 yeas.
Second reading, emergency ordinances to be passed.
Ordinance 149, 2022, by Council Members McCormack, Bishop, and Hairston, by departmental request, authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to issue a permit to 3004 St. Clair LLC to encroach into the public right-of-way of Kenilworth Avenue by installing, using, and maintaining a concrete step and stoop awning and planter. Ordinance 150, 2022, by Council Members McCormack, Bishop, and Hairston, by departmental request, authorizing the Director of Community Development to enter into one or more agreements with Dan DeRaco for the exchange of easements, authorizing the Director to execute deeds of easements, granting to Dan DeRaco certain driveway access and utility easement rights in various properties, declaring the easement rights not needed for the city's public use, and authorizing the Director to accept from Dan DeRaco certain easement rights and various properties needed for mutual driveway access and utilities. Ordinance 212, 2022, by Council Members Polensek and Griffin by departmental request, to supplement the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio by enacting new Section 135.531 relating to agreements to share crime and safety information with residents and solicit access and store home camera footage and images, and to repeal Ordinance 454, 2021, relating to one or more agreements with Ring for the city to participate in the Neighbors Public Safety Service. Ordinance 213, 2022, by Council Members McCormack, Bishop, and Hairston, by departmental request, authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to the Goat My Place LLC to encroach into the public right-of-way of West 25th Street by installing, using, and maintaining 2 metal canopies supported by 4 metal columns, as well as metal railings with wood caps. Ordinance 247, 2022, by Council Members Casey, Bishop, and Griffin, by departmental request, authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into a license agreement granting Bel Air Puritas Development Corporation the right to use and occupy city-owned property located within Jefferson Park to maintain and repair 8 stone benches for the use and convenience of the general public. Ordinance 269, 2022, by Council Members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into agreement with the Neighborhood Leadership Institute to implement educational, recreational, and cultural programs in various school buildings and other facilities during evening hours, provide leadership training, and oversee the summer tennis program. Ordinance 277, 2022, by Council Members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, authorizing the procurement by one or more requirement contracts of the rental of large capacity trucks with operators for the Division of Streets, Department of Public Works for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director of Public Works. Ordinance 279, 2022, by Council Members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, authorizing the purchase by one or more standard and requirement contracts for the purchase, lease, or lease with option to purchase of various on-road vehicles, apparatus and off-road equipment, cabs, bodies, and accessories, equipment and other aftermarket items necessary to equip the vehicles authorized for their intended purposes, including vehicle rehabilitation, training, and inspections as needed for the various divisions of city government. Ordinance 290, 2022, as amended by Councilmember Griffin, to amend Section 4 of Ordinance 194, 2021, as amended, relating to compensation for various classifications.
Read the motion to suspend the rules.
By Councilmember Slife, that the rules be suspended and the legislation just read be placed on final passage. Seconded by Councilmember Moore.
Call the roll.
Griffin, Bishop, Conwell, Gray, Hairston, Harsh, House, Jones, Casey, Moore, McCormack, Mooney, Polensek, Santana, Slife, Spencer, Starr. 15 yeas.
Call the roll on passage.
Griffin, Bishop, Conwell, Gray, Hairston, Harsh, House, Jones, Casey, Moore, McCormack, Mooney, Polensek, Santana, Slife, Spencer, Starr. 15 yeas.
Second reading, emergency resolutions to be adopted.
Resolution 291, 2022, by Council Members Slife and Conwell and Mayor Bibb, strongly opposing the Ohio General Assembly's passage and Governor DeWine's signing into law Senate Bill 215 that puts Ohio citizens at risk by allowing qualifying adults to carry concealed handguns without license and necessary safety training, and urging the Ohio General Assembly to repeal this law.
Read the motion to suspend the rules.
By Councilmember Slife, that the rules be suspended and the legislation just read be placed on final passage. Seconded by Councilmember Moore.
On that notice, Madam Clerk, I thought that all council members' names were added to that, to the Slife and Conwell resolution. Was that done?
Yes, we can do that.
That was done?
We
Okay.
can do that.
If all the council's name, because that's a resolution repealing that. Okay, thank you. Call the roll.
Griffin, Bishop, Conwell, Gray, Hairston, Harsh, House, Jones, Casey, Moore, McCormack, Mooney, Polensek, Santana, Slife, Spencer, Starr. 15 yeas.
Call the roll on adoption.
Griffin, Bishop, Conwell, Gray, Hairston, Harsh, House, Jones, Casey, Moore, McCormack, Mooney, Polensek, Santana, Slife, Spencer, Starr. 15 yeas.
Thank you. Are there any introductions? Any introductions? I'll introduce, even though we fuss all the time. I love her dearly. My good friend Brenda Bickerstaff, if she could please stand. Brenda Bickerstaff, want to acknowledge her. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge Juan, if he could please stand. I know he's here every week. A lot of people don't know, but this gentleman works hard for the city. If he could please stand, Juan. Juan is the guy who you guys get calls to when we're trying to get water department repairs and other things, and he's a dedicated servant, so you need to know him. Say that again. Oh, yeah, start. Junior. Oh, that's Juan Jr. Please stand. Juan Jr. Go ahead. All right. I never met Juan Jr., so good to meet him. All right. Any other introductions? Any other introductions? Say that again. Kareem Hinton, Black Lives Matter. Let's acknowledge Kareem. Thank you. All right. All right. Seeing no more introductions, are there any announcements? No announcements? Any miscellaneous? Councilman Kerry McCormick, and then Councilman Charles Slife and Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, I rise tonight to both react to and also reflect on some of the commentary that we heard tonight around safety on our road systems or lack thereof. And I also rise in appreciation that this council and that the administration is really diving in from a policy perspective on how we better design our roads to be safer for what many call vulnerable road users, so cyclists, pedestrians, and other users that are not in a vehicle. Mr. Chairman, policy can get wonky, but I'll tell you a couple quick examples in the last week and then previous to that. Unfortunately, in the last week alone, I had a lady hit on Detroit Avenue crossing legally in the crosswalk, going from a store to her home. And then a couple hours later, a child, as they were crossing with the crossing guard on Lorraine Avenue to Urban Community School, was struck by a vehicle. Thankfully, in both cases, they are going to be okay. But I just bring those two examples out from this week alone, Mr. Chairman, of how critical it is moving forward that we really design our roads to calm traffic and to accommodate vulnerable road users. Mr. Chairman, in life, in my professional career and otherwise, I'm an eternal optimist. One thing that I've given up on is trusting people to know how to drive. People are out of control. It has gotten worse during the pandemic. Street signs are great, but people don't follow them. As you heard earlier, they blow stop signs, they blow stoplights, out of control speeding, and I fundamentally believe that the real way to deal with this issue is to better design our roads to force force drivers to slow down. We've seen these types of traffic treatments, speed humps, different ways to calm roads that are happening in Akron and Detroit, in Lakewood, Ohio. They're investing millions in their roads to calm traffic and create safe crosswalks and opportunities for our children, seniors, and families to navigate our neighborhoods. So again, Mr. Chairman, I thank you, our body, as well as the mayor's administration for really digging into that complete and green streets ordinance to ensure that moving forward, that we don't ignore the vulnerable folks in our community. They're not in a 3,000-pound climate-controlled metal box called a car, but that are getting around in our community and deserve safe roads. I'll tell you, Mr. Chairman, too, about a month and a half ago, unfortunately, my dog was run over on Franklin Boulevard as we legally crossed the crosswalk, leashed. He also is okay, thank God. Thank you, West Park Animal Hospital. But I just bring these few examples up of the many, many, many examples that Clevelanders face every single day when it comes to safety in our road systems. And again, I think it's gotten worse and worse and worse. So with our Vision Zero initiative, with our complete streets, with really looking at ways that we can create safer roads for our community, I'm very optimistic that we'll get there, Mr. Chair, but this is an acute issue. As I noted, I can't go to a block club anymore. I can't go to a community meeting without this coming up over and over and over again. And Mr. Chairman, like you heard tonight, whether it is a church, whether it's cyclists, or whether it's other folks facing speeders and out-of-control drivers in their neighborhood, this is a meat and potatoes issue for our residents. And I thank you and the body and the administration for really earnestly working on policy to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I have Councilman Charles Slifen and Councilman Michael Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. I just wanted to thank my colleagues and Mayor Bibb for the passage of Resolution 291, 2022. In my opinion, Senate Bill 215, which was passed in Columbus, signed into law by Governor DeWine, it's a cheap political win by the Republican Party that is going to end up with increased gun violence in communities like Cleveland and other communities across Ohio. And I just adamantly believe that the answer to gun violence is not to make it easier to get guns. And Mr. Chair, I said this during our committee meeting today. I'll say it again today. It frustrates me when this body is accused in some corners of turning a blind eye to violent crime, when what we are facing with this law is actors, politicians in Columbus who are contributing to violent crime in cities and acting against the wishes of law enforcement. Law enforcement oppose this law. And I think it's important in passing this resolution that we stand up, speak for our residents, and expect politicians in Columbus to answer to their hypocrisy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman, and thank you for leading the charge on that. We know that the state is not always our friend, but it's good to make sure that our voices are heard no matter what, okay? Thank you. Councilman Michael Polensek and then Councilman Joseph Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Mayor, my colleagues, Madam Clerk. Mr. Chairman, on Saturday, April 2nd, Honorable Congressman Tim Ryan asked me to attend a gathering in the city of Seven Hills to represent the council at a gathering of community leaders from the Eastern European community to hear firsthand from residents who have family in Ukraine of what their families are experiencing at this moment. We are witnessing every day on TV and on monitors the brutality, the killing of women, innocent men, women, and children. We saw the pictures today, what happened in the city, a small town, where just people were tied, their hands tied behind their backs, executed in the street, mass graves, women being raped and set on fire. And we heard firsthand the plea coming out of the community on Saturday. And again, I want to thank Congressman Tim Ryan and all the other folks who turned out that day. But they're looking for, and I sent a piece of correspondence over to the mayor today, and I want to thank Ms. Alvo for getting back to me. They're looking for any surplus helmets, ballistic vests, anything that they can provide the armed forces of Ukraine, the police officers in Ukraine. They're looking for surplus fire equipment. I want to thank those suburbs and those cities that have contributed already. The most recent is Olmsted Township, who submitted and gave fire equipment. But clearly, they need help. They need help. It's horrific what they are experiencing, what they are going through. So again, I want to say to the administration, any surplus equipment we can identify, coordinate that with the Ukrainian community, and we'll get it shipped over. Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your support as well on this issue. The last point I wanted to make is at the Safety Committee last week, Mr. Chairman, we discussed the number of officers that are presently on the force. And as of last week, we heard 1,414 officers, sworn members of the Cleveland Police Department. So what should that tell us all that are gathered here? We're down over 200 officers. The budget called for 1,620. All of us are greatly concerned about the violence, the problems that we're hearing. I just heard my colleague get up and speak about the road conditions, people not paying attention to signs, school zones, you name it. Well, what I've learned in this job over the years, there's no substitute than having police officers patrolling our streets and giving out tickets to those speeders. As a young man, I learned very quickly in this city, I learned to drive very cautiously and carefully, because if I didn't, I got a ticket in the city of Cleveland. My mother would tell me, be very careful where you're driving, because you're going to get a ticket if you're speeding. That doesn't exist anymore in this town. Our traffic unit is an all-time low. Other units their ranks, the numbers are all down. So, Mr. Chairman, what I want to say, and to the mayor and to the administration, who's only been here 3 months, so we know the challenge they're confronted with. We have to come up, we better start talking about a contingency plan going into summer, because I don't see us getting anywhere near, Mr. Chairman, the numbers that we need in the Division of Police. You and I and the mayor, and I want to thank again for the invitation from the mayor, you and I attended the swearing in. I think it was on March 7th. Since that swearing in, 3 officers have already left. They were just sworn in. They just quit. So we're not even treading water, Mr. Chairman. We're falling behind. There are people predicting that we're going to lose more officers before even the next class comes on. So we got to figure out, what is the game plan? Are we going to utilize Cuyahoga County Sheriff's deputies? Are we going to use the Ohio Highway Patrol? But we better start thinking now, and we better start talking among ourselves, because I can assure you, my colleagues, Mr. Chairman, we at the Safety Committee, we're going to drill down. We're going to ask these questions every time we meet about what's the game plan to address the growing concerns we have in this neighborhood. We all get the brevity reports. I look at them faithfully, as you all do. The violence, the stupidity, people just shooting, people being robbed. We're averaging, I'm looking at my note, 1 carjacking a day. That's obscene. That is obscene. We've seen just innocent people shot in their cars, their homes, kids walking down the streets. So again, we have to come up with a contingency plan, because we're not going to get to the numbers, Mr. Chairman. We're not going to get to the numbers called for in the budget at the rate we're going. It ain't going to happen. We got to come up with a better plan of action. So I'm here to work with the administration. I'm here to work with my colleagues. Let's start thinking out of the box and start doing it now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Joe Jones, and Councilman Joe Jones has asked for an extended period of time. Councilman Jones.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, to the mayor, to the clerk. Last week, Tuesday, there was a shooting at McDonald's in my neighborhood. Thank God no one got killed. That same day, we had a car flip over in Harvard Avenue. And by that Thursday, we had a young 11-year-old missing young lady. And by Friday, we had a shootout on East 160th Street and Lotus. And over the weekend, we had another shootout, drive-by shooting, rattled up somebody's house, who was a victim and they don't know who did it, senior citizen. And then this week, we've had just started on Sunday, and today I've heard about another shootout in my neighborhood. So it hasn't even gotten hot yet, and we're having these kinds of situations in our community. When it comes to listening to the pastor, and I gave her a big round of applause, and one of the things she said was, this is happening all the time. We've made a basic request, and this has gone on for 2 years. The problems that we have in our neighborhood as it relates to safety, we're at a space of a critical state of existence. And, you know, we've sat here, you know, as the vice chairman and the chairman, we talked about one of the things that is the meat and potatoes of the police department, and that is deployment. How we put our assets on the street and how efficient and effective those assets are going to be is important. And when I looked at my neighborhood, for an example, Ward 1, we have 8 zones. So we're cut, sliced, and diced. And on any one given moment and snapshot in time, we may not have not one police officer at all in Ward 1. And when there's events and issues happening in other parts of the 4th District, they will pull those police officers to handle those issues. And what I've heard over the years is, yeah, you have some issues in your neighborhood, but it's not as bad as it is over here in these other sections. So, you know, as an elected official, going back to a period of time in my neighborhood when we had 3 zones, and those 3 zones were with police officers who stayed in the neighborhood and they had the manpower to be in our communities. We don't have that now. And on any given day, I'm lucky if I see one police officer in my neighborhood. And so when the citizens, and you hear gunfire, and I had a meeting, we had over 250 people, one of the things was, you know, we will call the police, but what's good is calling the police, councilman, if they don't come. We're tired of calling them. And to hear that sense of hopelessness out of the citizens is a powerful impact. And it's a reflection, and the lady said, it's your responsibility. It's on us as council members. We are a part of the management system that is supposed to deal with these problems that we have as it relates to police deployment. And so, Mr. Chairman, I've submitted a plan, and I've talked about it to our colleagues about going back to basic patrols in the city of Cleveland. And my suggestion is, and it can work, each neighborhood, right now, if you look at the 4th District, they only have 2 traffic enforcement cars to represent 6 neighborhoods. 2 traffic enforcement cars representing 6 communities. Unacceptable. And so I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, that we have in our neighborhoods, respectively, all 17 neighborhoods should have 2 traffic enforcement cars. You heard Mike Cox talk about like Solon and like Chagrin Falls. Well, like Solon and like Chagrin Falls with similar populations, or maybe a little bit more than us, but those neighborhoods I border have this kind of protection. 2 traffic enforcement, 1 one-man cars, and they have 2 two-man cars in their neighborhoods around the shift. When you put that kind of manpower in place on the streets of the city of Cleveland, it has a profound and powerful impact. That would mean 18 people that would stay in that neighborhood around the clock, 4 cars, protecting that neighborhood, and they never leave. And when you times that number, it comes to 306 police officers on the street, representing all 17 wards, around the clock. And then if you need to have extra support, throw another 300 in there. And then that makes it so that you have a fighting force, visibility that stays in each and every neighborhood like Solon, like Chagrin Falls, like Garfield. We need to have that. Our citizens deserve to have that, Mr. President, and we should offer that to them. And every time I go and I talk to the citizens of the city of Cleveland and I lay that car plan out before them, they're excited about that. Why don't you implement that plan? And even though we're down so many police officers, we can still implement that plan with what we have right now. And what I would also, you know, I know the administration is new and our citizens is looking at you. They find hope in the new administration, and they want this mayor to be very successful. If this mayor puts that kind of plan out there, that's going to have a positive and profound change in the city of Cleveland. And then, Mike, you will get a ticket if you ride too fast, because every single neighborhood is going to have its own traffic enforcement system in play. And secondary, to add to the boot of that, when it comes to public service, this is what we're all about. If we just stay here 1 year in, 1 year out, 1 term in, 1 term out, and we're not successful in terms of changing the conditions that impact our citizens, then what good are we as elected officials? So I appreciate looking at Bonnie Twyman when the lady had the issue get up, go over there and say, hey, let me try to help you out with this situation. Our citizens are fed up with not being able to get anything done. And they're showing that through getting up and walking away from the city of Cleveland and washing their hands and moving somewhere else. So let's start anew. Let's look at this plan. It can be implemented. Every man and woman who is a Cleveland police officer with a badge and a gun should not be sitting behind a desk. We are at a crisis mode. They need to be out in our streets keeping our citizens safe. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much. Seeing no more comments. Councilman Richard Starr. Councilman Richard Starr.
Why y'all looking at me like that? Tonight, I just want to make sure I bring everybody awareness to, okay, I ain't that tall, but I need to feel, make sure I'm up there. Tonight, I just want to stand and rise and speak on the violence in our city. I hear we speak about Ukraine, and we always speak about everybody else's neighborhood, but we never address the neighborhood issues or the war that's going on in our own city. When things go down in our own city, we don't stand up and speak about what's right to do. So today I want to make sure everybody understand, since January 1st of this year, we have had 47 homicides. I don't hear us talking and screaming about what we need to do as far as resources, committees, conversations, and handling those issues. But we're going to have the nerve to talk about something that's happening thousands of miles away. So as an African-American man, born and raised in the city of Cleveland, I think we need to stop pretending and let's start calling out the true issues. So would I also stand here to address the war that's in Ward 5, the resources that's lacking. The city of Cleveland median income is $30,000. We are the poorest major city in the country. The median income in Ward 5 is $15,000. In the central neighborhood, it's $10,000, which represents people possibly only residents working part-time. Let's address the real issues. When we turn around in November 13th, when Arthur Keefe was killed and shot by a CMHA police officer, I didn't see the safety chair, I didn't see the safety director say anything about calling CMHA up for a hearing. And I stand here right now asking our chair of the safety to bring CMHA here to the table and give us answers about what happened to Arthur Keefe. So I'm putting it on record now, and I will put it in an email later on tonight, because we need something done with our people. They need to know why Arthur was shot and killed 3 times in his back, and we still don't got no justice. So when we all think about what we want to do and how we want to support everyone, we need to support our own residents and call out our own mistakes and take ourselves and hold ourselves accountable by our action, because this doesn't make sense. So I just want to make sure I make a point of reference. We could talk about these other issues, but we need to address our issue with the authority that we have as a body and making sure we do our job. That's all I have to say.
All right, I believe that is everyone. Madam Clerk, please excuse the absences.
By Councilmember Slife, that the absence of Council Members Conwell and Spencer are hereby excused. Seconded by Councilmember Moore.
All right. This council is adjourned to the next regular meeting on April 11th, 2022. Thank you.